All right, good morning, everybody. Welcome back to Redneck Rantings. It is about 4:30 in the morning on Tuesday, March the 26th. We got us a brand new rant today. As promised, today's rant is going to be about Minnesota State Representative Ilhan Omar. For those of you who don't know about who Miss Omar is, well, first off, allow me to congratulate you on getting internet access under that rock. Or welcome back to planet Earth. I hope Mars is lovely this time of year. For the benefit, jokes aside, for the benefit of those who don't really know who she is and who aren't really up on things of late, Ilhan Omar is a representative from my state of Minnesota. Well, actually, she's from Somalia. She emigrated here under some allegedly shady circumstances. There's been some hints of possible immigration fraud. She got elected this past session to the state legislature, and much like Senator Ocasio-Cortez, another personal favorite of mine, ha 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 ha, idiot, she has been in the news for a lot of the wrong reasons lately. There's been allegations of immigration fraud. There's been numerous anti-Semitic remarks on her part. She's generally pissing people off, and not just people like myself who are not necessarily fans of the Islamic faith. And I'm probably going to do a rant about the specifics of why I am not their biggest booster, but not right now. What I want to talk about right now, excuse me, it's 4:30 in the morning, I need some caffeine. What I want to talk about right now, excuse me, is this latest bullshit that she got up to this past weekend, where she went out to LA and she attended a conference by the organization CAIR, which is the Council on American Islamic Relations. Now, this in itself is not a problem. Representative Omar has the same right to association and free speech as any other citizen in America. It's part of what makes America so great. The problem is that CAIR has been linked to a couple of terrorist organizations, specifically Hamas and the Muslim Brotherhood, both of which have been responsible for acts of politically motivated violence. All right. First off, I don't think it's appropriate for an elected representative to be addressing an organization with links to terrorist organizations, particularly Islamic terrorist organizations, in a country that lost 3,000 people in a single attack. I think it's phenomenally disrespectful to the dead of 9/11. Not to mention all the other people that have been lost due to Islamic terrorism in this country in the intervening years, okay? Like a lot of people, I can remember exactly where I was when I found out about the attacks. And this was a great many years ago at this point. I do not think it is appropriate. The other thing that is making this somewhat newsworthy is the fact that Representative Omar is claiming, first off, that Muslims are, quote, second-class citizens in this country. They're not. And is urging people, and these are her words, to, quote, raise hell and go out there and make people uncomfortable. Okay. First off, the phrase raise hell, when you are addressing a demographic that has got a very well justified reputation for being involved in acts of social violence, and specifically addressing an organization with links to two separate terrorist organizations, would be inappropriate on the part of if you're a private citizen like I am. for an elected representative to do that, it's completely out of line. She should not be doing this. It's incitement. You tell a group that has got links to terrorist organizations, go out there and raise hell. Some of these individuals are going to think she wants us to go out there and do truck attacks and stabbing attacks and just generally kick up civil unrest. It is incitement. Whether or not anybody actually blows up a coffee shop, she is urging people to engage in violent civil unrest. Okay? If a right-wing politician did the same exact thing, the left would be calling for their removal. And this is not the first time that Representative Omar has misbehaved. She's got a reputation for being an anti-Semite. The whole kerfluffle in the Senate over the condemnation of anti-Semitism, which basically turned into a really spineless, broader condemnation of bigotry of all kinds, was a direct result of her actions and her big, idiot, stupid mouth. I realize that she's young. I realize that she's inexperienced. This is basic stuff here. What she is doing is she is demonstrating that her loyalty is not to the state of Minnesota. It is not to her broader constituency, which is supposed to be every single Minnesotan. It is not to the United States of America. It is very specifically, first and foremost, to her faith and to her co-religionists. And she is simply using her position in public office as a lever to better the lot, first and foremost, of her co-religionists and to further their agenda, which the more honest imams are saying is not one of assimilation. It is not one of living within the greater American culture. I don't have a problem with legal immigrants, okay? I'm partly of Irish descent. My great-grandfather came over here legally. He wove himself into the larger fabric of American culture and society, raised up a bunch of kids. Fast forward a couple of generations, y'all are listening to the partial result of that. But when you come over here and you retain as your primary loyalty allegiance to another group, specifically your birth religion, which I don't have a problem with that. I'm deeply religious myself. I'm going to be saying my prayers after I get done with this. You should not be in public office, okay? It is unprofessional and it is wildly inappropriate because you're supposed to be serving the larger body as a whole, not just this relatively small segment of the population and pushing their agenda. You should be calling for unity. You should be calling for people to get along. You should not be telling people with a reputation for violence and links to terrorism, go out there and raise hell. You should be calling for calm, especially on the heels of a terrorism attack in another country. Not to mention the various acts of violence that are going on against people of the Christian faith perpetrated by Muslims in other countries that the mainstream media is not talking about. Representative Omar, I know you're probably not gonna see this. I'm frankly a nobody, all right? You need to get your shit together. And the public, the voting public of Minnesota needs to start holding your ass accountable. Representative Omar, you are a public figure. You are a public servant. The same taxes that are paid by a working class Irish guy like myself and by a first generation Mexican American and a brand new immigrant to this country from your homeland of Somalia, all of that money goes to pay your salary. You're not just getting paid by the Somali community or the Muslim community. You are getting paid by everybody in the state of Minnesota, and you have an obligation to serve all of our interests. You have an obligation to put all of our needs, not just your own people, and you definitely should not be addressing organizations that support terrorism, and you definitely should not be encouraging people to violence. We get it, you're young, you're inexperienced, but I don't believe that you don't know what you're doing. I believe that you very much know what you're doing, and this idea that you are part of a second-class group is bullshit. There's a saying, if you want to know who's in charge, look at who you can't criticize. Well, these days, you can criticize, and I know this is a very commonly repeated trope these days, but it's the truth. These days, you can criticize Christian people, and again, I am not Christian, okay? I am a pagan. I am a member of the Wiccan faith. You cannot criticize, you can criticize Christians all day long and nobody really says anything. But if you start trashing Muslims, well, gee, look at Tommy Robinson. The man got pulled off of pretty much all social media except for YouTube. Look at the attempted hatchet job that was done on Avi Yemeni. Look at anybody who stands up and offers honest criticism of the Islamic ideology. They get shouted down, they get excoriated, they get censored, they get called bigots and racists, and I'm sorry, but Islam is not a race. There are Muslims of every color of the rainbow. There's white ones, brown ones like yourselves, there's Mexican ones, there's Asian ones, you name it. If the gods made it, a couple of them are Muslims, okay? You have the same rights as everybody else in this country. Representative Omar, your mere presence in elected office, in the halls of power in this country, proves that you're not a second-class citizen, that you do not belong to a second-class oppressed group. If anything, you're part of a privileged group, partly because you personally are in the halls of power and you are steering the direction of this country. And the direction you want it to go, frankly, scares the piss out of me, and it should scare anybody with a brain in their head, because all we have to do is look across the water to Europe and see what has happened when Islamism gets hold of the reins over there. You're not a member of a second-class group in any way, shape, or form. You are simply using that as a drum to beat, because in modern politics, modern left-wing politics, second-class status has cachet. It has currency. You need to dial the rhetoric back. You need to stop being so anti-Semitic in your speech. You need to stop being so vitriolic and inflammatory in your choices of words. You need to quit going out there and inciting people to civil unrest and claiming that you are oppressed when, by definition of the fact that that good manners compels me to call you a senator, because you are one, by definition of the fact that you are a senator, you're not part of the oppressed group, okay? 50, 60 years ago, black people were an oppressed group, and you didn't have anybody of that color in the halls of power. That was a second-class group. You're not. This is going on 14 minutes, and my wife is going to be getting up soon. So I've said what I got to say. That's about it. Like, share, subscribe. Hit that bell button for future notifications. If there's anything else you'd like me to rant about, put it in the comments section. I'm here for all 8 of you. Pass this around. Hopefully maybe some of your friends will like it. Y'all have a good morning. I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.